Cabray in the School of Irish Wrestling. Joe, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's great to be here. Lovely school.
Yeah, it's getting there. We're still putting some touches to it, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's very nice. We got to watch training all this morning. It was very good. Good to see how far the lads have come along in such a short space of time as well. But if you can just tell us a bit about the school, like what's your role in the school? Like what do we call you? Are you the head coach? Are you the owner?
Yes, I suppose I'm the head coach, but kind of like the school is, I wanted to kind of have, a base of everything. So I was trained in the kind of American style of wrestling. Paddy was brought up in kind of like in the British style of wrestling, it's more technical. And then we have like LJ as a coach who brings the kind of like the current kind of psychology of wrestling as well. So I think that's kind of an important blend because I'm not as active as I was anymore. Paddy's not as active. And then we have a session with Martina. She's also a coach as well. She brings her own kind of blend as well because she's currently on the scene as well. And she's kind of, the psychology of wrestling kind of continuously changes. So it's important to have coaches that are that are out there every weekend and kind of, keeping up with what's going on. Because you can teach people how to bump, but the psychology sometimes changes, and you got to keep up with that. So in making this school, it was important to me that we had a good range of coaches that were covering all bases. And then we have Sean Maxer, who is also our strength conditioning coach. So we've all the, probably understand themselves there. So we kind of have all bases covered, to make this kind of one of the best schools in the world.
So would you, particularly in relation to the other lads, would you have a niche? Would you have something that you would class yourself as an expert in one area? Like we talked to Paddy Morrow earlier on, and he said that his main attribute would be the selling part of things. I know Martina would have maybe the character part. Is there something that you would pride yourself on having a niche area?
I suppose just my experience, I was, I was fairly successful, I got to the WWE and traveled the world doing it, so having a mindset as well that I can pass on to young people and kind of tell them what's important, to get now. There's some people that will just forever wrestle in Ireland, but I think I can give good advice to people who want to go out there and excel and get outside Ireland and stuff, because I did it myself, so just kind of giving my experience, I've been lucky, I've wrestled some of the best, I've been on tours with some of the best, and being able to pick their brains, I think is something that I've been able to pass on as well. Just kind of my knowledge, I've been around for, since the start,
And would you class yourself as would you be a hands-on coach? Would you be jumping into the ring with the lads, or would you take more of a step back approach? Would you be watching from the outside?
Now at the moment, it depends, I don't really get too hands-on in coaching as much as I used to anymore, but maybe with this return, I'll probably start getting a bit more hands-on.
Forced to be hands-on more so than anything. So, would you prefer, again, just from a coaching perspective, would you prefer to work in groups? Would you be one-on-one with people? Where do you find you're more helpful to your trainees?
I think groups are very important because you can't really pick who you're going to wrestle. So sometimes you might be wrestling somebody who's comedy, completely different style to you. And you have to adapt, you have to be able to react to those people. Then you might have someone that's just their strength is actually their power, and you might have to take some of their power moves. So I think groups, when you're in groups, everyone's from a different blend, everyone's kind of trying to take different avenues as to where they want to excel in wrestling, and it's kind of important that you're able to adapt to someone who's tall, someone who's small, someone who maybe not as strong, and kind of work around each other's challenges. So I think group training, I think, is really important. Also as well, you kind of get a lot more done, but you're also dealing with, as I said, from different backgrounds, different aspects as to what they bring to the table, and you have to adapt to what they bring. So group for me, I think, is very important. I think all martial arts and all boxing as well is mostly kind of group training.
You had plans for a branch in, I'm not sure if you named it Belfast or Antrim or wherever you said. That obviously didn't go ahead because COVID put a stop to that.
Yeah.
Is that still in the plans?
It's still in the plans. I think there's a lot of There's a serious lack of a good school up north. I think that's the problem. And I think there's a lot of very eager people up there that have a lot of talent. So yeah, it is something that I would like to kind of look at and explore up there, But it is just on hold at the moment until they kind of like get Dublin up and running and stuff like that. But it is on the list to get done for sure. Yeah.
What about the rest of the country? Have you put any thought into the rest?
No, I think as well. Like, I mean, if you really want to train, like everyone in America, they've all had to travel serious distances. And I think if you're serious about becoming a professional wrestler, this is the place to be. I mean, we've people who have moved from Italy, and all other parts of the world to come here and train to be, because they know this school is one of the best, and they've seen the reputation of it, and they see the coaches and all that. But if you can't drive a few hours down the road with them, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people put the travel in. Like, I think I was only slagging names. I was from mates. He says not Dublin, but still. And there are a lot of people who will.
The guy that Max said used to come down to me every weekend from Belfast. Like that's where Adam Max is doing. He's in Pakistan at the moment wrestling. So I always say as well to young people as well, get back what you're putting in. Don't want to travel up a couple of hours every weekend to be a pro wrestler. Then that probably sets it there. You're probably not going to make it.
Yeah, definitely a commitment that they need to make.
Absolutely.
So talking about trainees, then, are there any potential blockers that you would see that would be common for a trainee? Is there anything that constantly pops up? Even in ring, or even outside the ring, or even in their own personal lives, is there something that tends to pop up as a blocker when someone is training that maybe would hinder their journey as a trainee?
Not particularly. I always say that everyone can be a professional wrestler, right? Everyone can be a wrestler. You just have to find what it is that you can push to the forefront. So you might have a great look. You might look like The Rock. That should be the thing that you push. You may be just an incredibly funny person. Be cool. You be a comedy wrestler. Find what it is that you bring to the table and push that. You might have unbelievable confidence. You might have an absolute killer promo. They should be the things that you push to the forefront. That's what's going to get you over. So it's just kind of finding looking at the people and seeing what it is as their strongest attributes and what they can push, in terms of them becoming a professional wrestler. Some people as well make the mistake of they're big Will Ospreay fans. They don't have the athleticism of Will Ospreay. They come in, they try and do Will Ospreay. They do it really bad. Whereas they find out then, that they're actually quite funny outside the ring, and they probably can go that way a bit easier, So it's just finding what it is you bring to the table.
You mentioned that some people might find themselves funny in comedy wrestling. Do you find that some people would be hesitant to go down that route? Do people come in and say, I want to be the next, as you said, Ospreay, I want to be that 5-star match, where you think, I'm just going to be a laughing stock with it, whereas, is there a stigma around comedy wrestling, do you think?
I don't think so, but I think it's incredibly hard. Incredibly hard to go out there and be funny, And I mean, I remember years, many years ago, before I tried comedy and I just died, it's every bit as hard as, trying to do moonsaults. You have to have time in, it's like everything. There's good comedians, there's bad comedians. There's great comedy wrestlers and there's really horrible comedy wrestlers. To me, that kind of comedy where people are going out and just talking through their matches, that to me is just garbage. That's not comedy wrestling. That's just lazy.
You've done some good stuff recently. You said that you were garbage at it or wherever, but you've done some good stuff with Barry recently, especially in promo. I think you're doing yourself a disservice there, saying that you were funny. Maybe you're not finding your funny bone more recently. But do you feel like that you're slipping into a bit of comedy yourself?
Jeez, I hope.
Look at the promo for MLW that you did.
Which one?
Was it a moonsault or something that you tried to do, or in the promo you showed that you were a bad wrestler? That's comedy.
I suppose that you can do a couple of takes in that in a promo. You go out and do that in a live show, and it might get across. It's just I suppose it's very different to go out there in a live audience and try and do comedy. You know what I mean? It's daunting as well. You're going out there and going these jokes, these might land, and then what will they do? So yeah.
I think I heard before that you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable as well.
Absolutely. Like you need to be, I think this is, to answer your question, I think some of the things that the young people in wrestling kind of find hard is being in the ring and not doing anything. That to some people just kills them. You have to do that, you have to be able to, you have to let stuff settle. And it won't settle if you keep doing stuff. So being comfortable in the ring doing nothing is so important.
When you're looking at your group of trainees, I know that like you may not take every class, you may not take a class, but I know that you probably watch a lot of it. Are you sitting there, do you have your promoter's hat on, watching some of that? Are you thinking from a booking perspective as well, how I could book this person or this character? Or
More so we have a promo class maybe once every 3 weeks, maybe once a month, and that's when I'm really watching. That's where we have just an open, in this room we just have an open door and you're free to come in and you're free to try anything you want. So you can come and try a gimmick as a bin man, you could try and do a gimmick as someone who's mentally unstable, you could try to do a gimmick of someone who is, and that's where, that's kind of where the creativity comes in. You kind of look at someone and go, God, they did that really well, so that's where most of the people kind of like to come from. As I said, you don't have to be the greatest in-ring wrestler, but if you have something like a great gimmick, or, it's going to really help you. So the promo classes for me are kind of more so as to where I'm watching. Obviously, you have to be confident in the ring. You can't be injuring people. You can't be, but the promo classes are very, very important for that.
So where do you think that it stands then in the wrestler versus character argument? Because there's a lot of people that would say like, anyone can be a wrestler. You said that yourself. I think Paddy said it earlier on today when we were watching. It's about building those moments and the character basis and sending people home with a memory and what people are going to remember. Do you think that the character is more important than the in-ring ability?
I think sometimes you don't really remember the moves. Everyone does moves. The moves are your tools. But like we all remember Shawn Michaels warming up that super kick and telling Ric Flair he loves him. That wasn't a wrestling move. That was selling you something, The biggest things in wrestling, Stone Cold doing that before the stunner. You don't remember the stunner, but you remember and Vince's face going, they're the things that you remember, It's, the moves are very, very seldom, remembered. You don't really, unless it's something crazy, but you very seldom don't remember the moves. You remember the moments. So it's about creating moments, and you do that through selling and reacting to each other. It's like that's really, really important. To me, that's the thing about drilling the skills. Most wrestling schools around Europe are teaching people moves. That's why, if you don't learn how to sell, don't learn how to react, they're not going to go anywhere. And every school around Ireland especially are just teaching moves. Here's a suplex, they don't understand the concept of teach people how to sell, teach people how to react, teach people how to, create drama. But they just go, here, let's teach suplexes, let's teach, and I think that's why this school has produced since, I've been coaching people since I came back from I was coaching a little bit before I went to the States, but especially when I came back from the States, that's why so many people that I've, been able to get my hands on have done so well, because they start to understand that the moves are just the tools. It's the selling and reacting that you have to learn.
So when would you, or is there ever a time that I know you have to make the decision eventually, but when would you know if someone is ready for a match? When is someone ready to go in front of that live audience? Are you ever 100%?
You can be I'd have to have a certain level of insurance, because I can't have anyone getting hurt, or I can't have the person themselves getting hurt. And for me, it'd be quite important to have someone new in there with some experience that can guide them. You don't want to put somebody out there new, which does happen sometimes, and you put a person who's new and a person who's new, they're not going to learn that, they're just going to come back even, and it could kill someone's confidence. Happened to me a few times when I was younger, breaking in, being in there with somebody that wasn't that, we were at the same level, and just having your confidence destroyed because you've just had a really bad match. So I kind of look at people and go, I reckon that person's at a level where some experience could kind of work a good match with them. As long as they have the fundamentals down, they know how to post, which is kind of helping being lifted. They know a certain, level of moves, but they also have to learn how to sell. If they can't sell, they can't have a match. If you can't sell, you can't wrestle. It's that simple. Selling is the most important element of professional wrestling, but for some reason, just for so many, it goes over people's heads.
You were saying there as well that like someone's confidence might get knocked or whatever. But on the flip side, and this just me playing devil's advocate, do you feel that like that could be like a good thing for them as well? Because like a lot of people would learn from their mistakes or learn from failure. I know it can go drastically the other way and it can knock them completely. But like, do you believe that? Like, I'm a firm believer that everyone should fail at some things to learn from them.
Yes, you'll definitely fail in pro wrestling. You would not. You couldn't. You'd never understand how much goes wrong in wrestling matches until you're backstage and you see the two people watching the court and apologise to each other. But sometimes two people are so good that they're able to cover it so well, you know. But there'll always be times, no matter who's wrestling who. If I wrestle Paddy 100 times, we go into a match, there's going to be some sort of miscommunication. And then we will learn from it. We'll say, well, why did that happen and how can we avoid it again? But in every single match, there's something that goes wrong. Now, sometimes it becomes obvious to the audience, and then sometimes they're so good they're able to cover it up. But there's a kind of an unwritten rule in wrestling that when you wrestle, you walk back to the corner and you wait for your opponent. You ask them, are they okay? And you talk about the match. You know, it's someone that's experienced, you kind of get feedback off them. How was it for you? What, you know, is there anything I could do? And you know, they'll sit you down. If they're cool, like they'll sit you down. Sometimes for half an hour and go, look, you shouldn't do this, and next time when you do this before it. You know what I mean? And that's where you learn. Like we do wrestling seminars as well, and sometimes you do a wrestling seminar with somebody and they'll come in and they'll just do drills, and you just learn drills, and that's fine. But the time you learn the most is when someone is just talking to you. You know. Sometimes just sets off a light bulb and changes your whole perspective of what you've been doing. That's what used to happen to me sometimes. I'm just in cars, driving other wrestlers to other places, you know, and just talking about the wrestling business, you know, and just kind of getting an understanding of it. And you're kind of like, I never thought about it like that, you know. I remember one time, so for instance, I did a seminar years ago, and the person turned around and said, nobody wants to see the next door neighbour in spandex. I always remember that. That stuck with me. And I created something completely just totally out there, almond the gimmick. I put so much into it, but it brought me to Japan, brought me to Pakistan, I traveled the world with it, you know, all because one person just said a comment. Nobody wants to see the next door neighbour in spandex, you know. And I was like, well, why don't I go off and just do something completely, you know, 180 on this? And that's when I came up with that gimmick. So I think spoken word is sometimes really important.
Yeah. So you've given plenty there about the school and why people should come and train. Is there anything that we missed out on? Is there anything like why should people come here? Like what do you offer to people? You offer them a wrestling education, obviously, but from what we've seen this morning, we saw a very good vibe there. We saw relationships being built. We spoke to some of your trainees. Some of them have met each other through this and built friendships and bonds that they probably haven't had for the rest of their lives. Is that something that you would encourage people to come and do, even from a hobby standpoint? Would you look at it like a football club? Like most people aren't going to go and train to be a footballer and go on to the Premier League. They're probably just going to do it to do their 2 training sessions a week and a match at the weekend, and they're probably not going to do it for the rest of their lives. Do you encourage that sort of thing as well, or do you want professional wrestlers here?
The only thing about that is that, you know, you're probably not going on to a show, you know, because you have to be hungry. You have to really, really want to get on to the wrestling show. You know what I mean? So if you're just coming in and clocking in and want to be a part of it, that's perfectly fine. But you can't compete with young people who are going to the gym, doing promos, doing extra sessions. You know what I mean? So you're not going to jump over them lads in terms of getting onto a show if there's a whole bunch of just hungry people that want it so much. You know what I mean? So I suppose, like, you know, I get what you're saying, but yeah, it's a very, even though it's predetermined, obviously it's a competitive environment. But there's so much, like wrestling still has a lot of kayfabe in it from back in the day, like a lot of respect, you know what I mean? Like there's not used to be the real loose handshake, which used to tell your opponent, you know, I'm not stiff, I'm going to take care, you know, that's kind of done away with. There's that's why it's still here, like respect. If you don't respect me, I can't let you lift me up and drop me. You know what I mean? That's the level of respect. So that's something I suppose but I'd still kind of push very much that respect element. Still, as I said earlier, you know, going back to the court and waiting for your opponent, making sure they're okay. It's very important, you know what I mean? And because wrestling is predetermined, there's a lot of it that's, you know, there is a lot about kind of like having a good reputation, you know? It's a lot of it.
So what's your goal with the school?
It's continuing. Look, our reputation speaks for itself. I truly believe like we do have the best coaches. You know, as I said himself, I've been around since day one. I've travelled the world. I've been to Dublin. I've wrestled the best. I've been to Japan. And Paddy, probably one of the, I would say Paddy probably one of the greatest wrestlers around to ever produced. You know what I mean? And then LJ, who is a rising star. You know, big things in his future. He's out there every weekend grinding. He's, you know, traveling Europe. He's wrestling some of the new best. You know, as I said earlier, the psychology constantly is changing. And then you have like, you know, Session with Martina. Again, someone traveled the world, AEW, turned down WWE, you know, started in Japan. She's traveled the world, like, you know. So between us all, we just have so much experience and so much different elements in terms of what we give. You know, I'm giving my experience. Paddy, you know, was great at selling, learning how to give sympathy. LJ, great in psychology, doing drills, you know, what's new in the wrestling business, and of course, you know, Session was well. So, as I said, like, and then the chance to work on OTT shows as well, where I think that for the scene in general, when you look at who has just excelled in the wrestling, Ireland wrestling, it's because of OTT, because they're getting in there, they're getting, you know, good matches to send off to other promoters. Other promoters know that if you work for OTT, well then you're no slouch, you know, because I'm not going to put people on my shows that aren't ready. And you're getting to work with some of the best. Like, just look at, say for instance, LJ, working Mark Cardona, Shane Strickland, all through Lucha Brothers, all through OTT, like, you know, Nico Salamora, the Rascals. So, and many more, like, there's probably so many more that I can't even think of. Like, that experience is just invaluable, you know, to be in the ring with those people. And then to go back to the court and say, like, what can I do different? And to be able to pick someone's brain like Shane Strickland. To be able to pick, like, I was telling LJ about after the pack match, and I was like, what advice did he give you? And he was like, I was just blown away. He said, like, stuff that I didn't even think of, he said he was telling me about, like, you know what I mean? It was just, he said, he brought me so next level, you know? So that's what he brings, you know what I mean? The absolute best, you know, and I always give 100% to whatever I'm doing, you know, so I have the best coaches and the best rings are constantly being maintained, and the shows will always be of the highest standard as well.
So talk to me about the shows then.
I'm sorry, the developing character I think is very important.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of stuff, promos where they're just not good. You're telling people that that's the level, you know. I think OTT, we kind of have to have a certain level of promo. It just doesn't go out. I've said this before in interviews, the amount of promo that has been spent, money has been spent on in OTT, that I just get and go, that's not going in because it's just not good. You know what I mean? And even just sometimes when I look at a promo that went out, I was like, that wasn't good. So there has to be a certain quality level as well. Or it just doesn't go out, and people in our locker room know it, that if they're not going to produce decent content, it's not going to work.
So with the shows, you're booking a show as the promoter of OTT. Do you have a checklist of what needs to be ticked off?
In terms of,
like, what do you need for a show? What's your checklist?
In terms of like matches or
all encompassing, like you need a venue, you need your lights, you need your social media, your things.
Yeah.
I don't know 100% what goes into these shows.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a list of 20 things that you need to take off when you're putting a show on?
I've just been doing it for so long. Like I broke in out of the first Irish wrestling school in Dublin. NWA Ireland was out there as well, like at the very same time. But I ended up having to promote the shows myself. So for as long as been a wrestler, I've been a promoter as well. So I've just been doing it for over 15 years. I've used to do the big shows in Europe, so it's just become a certain thing to where I know what I'm doing. Yeah, I suppose just in terms of like, there's so much involved. You know, logistics is the worst. Logistics is the main stressor, but the social media as well, and things as well kind of constantly. You know, social media as well constantly changes. So staying on top of those things as well, and trying to understand things like TikTok and hashtags can be quite good.
Do you go through TikTok?
No.
Have to get you out there. I get that probably different. So you said logistics is tough. So you're coming into in 2 weekends time, and you're coming into probably the biggest weekend in your promotion history.
Yeah.
And you're running 4 shows from the 28th through to the 21st. Wolverhampton, Dublin, Belfast and Wexford in that order, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You also have Derry the following Sunday, I think, on the 4th of November, is that? 5th of November. So logistically, to run those 5 shows in the space of like 9 days, like, that must be a nightmare.
Yeah, it's been stressful, and I've been traveling a lot lately. So I was in Barcelona last week, and then I'm going to Germany this weekend to compete myself. It's hard. I just take it in my stride, you know. I refuse to allow myself to get stressed. So it is what it is. Be what it be, you know. And that's one thing I've had to take a step back with, you know, just letting it overcome me, you know. So yeah, it's just, you know, every night taking a list of what needs to be done for the previous and taking it in my stride, you know. But yeah, it's definitely a lot to take on, especially, you know, going into a new place like Wolverhampton that I've never been in. So we'll get there. Yeah.
So you mentioned Wolves as well, your first show outside of the island of Ireland, let's say. Have you been thinking about doing that for a while?
Yeah, it's always been something. I used to always think about trying to do the WrestleMania weekend. It just never came off. It's so close a couple of times, just never came off. Yeah, as I said, like, we're kind of looking at other places as well, but it's just going to be, I think it's going to be another slow burner, just kind of like trying to build everything up again. Yeah, but it's always been something on the radar.
Is it a case that you're looking to build Wolverhampton to go back there again? Or
That's,
is
yeah,
it a case that you're looking to travel around?
No, that would be the thing. I mean, I'd like to open up new markets. I'd like to open up new markets in it's always been the goal to open up new markets in Ireland as well. Like, you know, we've looked at Galway, we've looked at Waterford one time, got cancelled. We're looking at Derry and stuff like that. We're just kind of looking at, you know, good level quality of shows and you know, continue to grow the brand.
Have you anything else lined up that you can give us? Like, you love this, I know you like this one, your plate spinning metaphor,
Yeah.
like that you've been saying recently. Have you many other plates spinning that you can let us in?
The plate is there, I just haven't put on the stick yet, so yeah, it's just a bit too early. But yeah, there's different places that we're kind of looking at, you know. But it's also kind of just gearing up as to seeing what the markets can take, you know. I think it's been hard for everyone to kind of bounce back since COVID, you know. I think people are still kind of concerned about going to events, and people are still, I think, concerned about buying tickets to events and if they get sick before it. So it's just been hard, I think, for everyone. I think all forms of entertainment have been hit pretty badly, you know.
Yeah. So who have you got around you? Who's your support? Who helps you with these shows? I find it hard to believe, and you're probably correct me, that like you do everything yourself. Do you have other people? Do you hand out jobs to people that like I have X person doing this? Or
it's not. People would say I'm a control freak. I'm not a control freak. I just like to know that if I've done it, I've done it. You know what I mean? I know it's done. So yeah, I book out the flights. The majority of the time, because I've been doing it for so long, I've become very burnt out. So I do the majority of the booking. But I will now kind of, you know, meet up with some people every once a month and kind of get ideas. And that's been hard lately, just coming up with ideas, you know, and kind of, you have to ask yourself questions, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was very much, around 2014, I was very much still deep in the business. I was still traveling when OT started. So I was wrestling in Germany, I was wrestling in England. I was still kind of very much watching it, you know, as a wrestling fan as well, like kind of watching the product. But I don't. I think it's important for me to take a step back and go, am I on the right direction here? Do we need to change things here? Do we need to wind this in a little bit and go a bit more in this direction? And that's basically it, you know. But so I do logistics, flights, hotels, I write the shows, produce the shows, I'm now wrestling on the shows at the school. But I am blessed, like Matthew Macklin as well takes care of a lot of the promo stuff, you know, which he takes care of the VOD as well, you know, so I'd be pretty in the shitter if it wasn't for stuff like that, you know. Yeah. And I do, as I said, we've some good groups as well, like kind of bop ideas too. And I also kind of bop ideas to, we have promos as well on what do you think it is this good, or, you know, give us good feedback. I think I surround myself with people who have good minds for the business, you know.
You said that you meet probably monthly with a few people. Is it hard to kind of take other people's advice on? Is it easy for you to take advice, or are you someone who would push back on something like that?
No, I'm pretty open at this point. Like, I very much realise I don't have all the answers, you know what I mean? So in that aspect, like, sometimes if I'm unsure, I'll go, do you think this might need to be changed, or do you think this is the way to go? But no, I'd be pretty willing, especially as well with the people I surround myself with. There's some people like that just have different views on the business, but also at the same time, I'm quite confident that I brought OTC to this level, you know. There is certain elements of the business that I fully understand. There's some people that will pitch an idea. Why don't you have this wrestler wrestle this wrestler? It's like, they're just not going to gel well. It's just not going to be good. There's no point in doing it. It's just not going to work. You know, most of the time I can be pretty on the ball and stuff.
Yeah. Do you listen to the fans much? You do it on social media and look at what the fans are looking for?
I'm just not a big fan of social media. I kind of find sometimes it can be a little bit, you know, I just nothing against, like, but I just avoid social media a lot in general in my life. I don't need it, and I'm not big on social media. I only opened my Instagram account there, 3-4 weeks ago. Never had Instagram. Don't really look at Twitter at all. And Facebook very seldom. It's just,
you'll be dancing around here doing TikToks now in a few weeks.
I don't think so. Maybe.
I'm going to follow Joe on TikTok.
Yeah.